Team 19 of 52 teams of 8 rival wisdoms. Help make America wiser and kinder with antique quotes that have passed the test of time to make humanity great with words of wisdom to encourage, educate, and entertain generations for centuries. Give your kids a competitive edge with faster reading skills with timed practice videos, alpha cipher puzzles to learn letters, words and phrases, and repetitive easy math to help us all grow wiser and kinder. Team quote 19.1. Business is the salt of life. Voltaire 1694–1778. This is a characteristically witty observation from Voltaire, using the metaphor of salt to describe business's role in human affairs. Just as salt preserves food, adds flavor, and was historically so valuable it was used as currency, Voltaire suggests business similarly enriches and sustains society. This perspective is interesting coming from Voltaire, who wasn't primarily a businessman himself but rather a writer and philosopher. However, he was quite successful in financial matters throughout his life, including some clever investment strategies that helped secure his independence as a writer and thinker. He understood that economic freedom could support intellectual and creative freedom. The salt metaphor works on multiple levels. Like salt, business is essential but needs to be in proper proportion. Both are universal across human cultures. Both serve as preservatives and catalysts for growth. Both can make life more palatable and interesting. It's also worth noting that Voltaire's view here reflects the emerging commercial mindset of the Enlightenment period, when thinkers were beginning to see trade and business as forces for social progress rather than merely as necessary evils. Team quote 19.2. A shortcut to riches is to subtract from our desires. Petrarch 1304–1374. This is a profound insight from Petrarch that aligns with both ancient philosophical wisdom and modern discussions about happiness and wealth. As one of the earliest Renaissance humanists, Petrarch was drawing on classical ideas while expressing them in his own distinctive way. The quote elegantly reframes the concept of wealth. Instead of focusing on accumulation, it suggests that true riches can come from wanting less. It's a mathematical metaphor, subtraction, applied to a philosophical concept, making a complex idea immediately graspable. This perspective has parallels in many philosophical traditions. The Stoics emphasized controlling desires rather than external circumstances. Buddhist teachings about how attachment leads to suffering. Modern minimalism and voluntary simplicity movements. What makes Petrarch's version particularly striking is its practical, almost businesslike framing. Rather than presenting it as purely spiritual advice, he frames it as a pragmatic shortcut. A clever way of achieving the same end result, feeling rich, through a different means. It's especially interesting to consider this message coming from Petrarch, who lived during the early stages of European commercial revival and the rise of banking families like the Medici. Even as society was beginning to create new paths to material wealth, he was suggesting an alternative route to feeling abundant. Team quote 19.3. A man is not paid for having a head and hands, but for using them. Elbert Hubbard 1856–1915. This quote from Elbert Hubbard captures an essential truth about the value of action over mere potential. Hubbard, who founded the Roycroft artisan community and was a key figure in the arts and crafts movement, understood deeply that capabilities only become valuable through their application. It's interesting to consider this in the context of Hubbard's own life and work. As a writer, artist, and philosopher, he didn't just talk about ideas. He put them into practice by creating a community that produced beautiful handcrafted furniture, books, and metalwork. The Roycroft community embodied this principle of active engagement versus passive potential. The quote has particular resonance in today's world of credentials and degrees. Having knowledge or skills, the head, and ability, the hands, isn't enough. It's the active application of these resources that creates value. This aligns with modern emphasis on practical experience and demonstrated ability over paper qualifications. What makes the quote especially effective is its directness. It's not just philosophical musing but a practical observation about how value is created in the world. Hubbard was himself a successful businessman as well as a philosopher, so he understood this principle from both theoretical and practical perspectives. Team quote 19.4. A prudent question is one half of wisdom. Francis Bacon 1561, 1626. This is a characteristically insightful observation from Francis Bacon, who was a pioneer of empirical scientific thinking. As one of the fathers of the scientific method, Bacon understood that asking the right questions was often more crucial than having immediate answers. There's an elegant mathematical precision to how he frames it, exactly 1/2 of wisdom. This suggests that wisdom consists of both the ability to formulate good questions and the capacity to seek their answers. The qualifier prudent is key here, not just any question will do, but one that is carefully considered and well framed. This idea resonates strongly with modern scientific and philosophical practice. Before designing experiments or developing theories, researchers must first frame their questions carefully. A poorly formulated question can lead an entire investigation astray, while a well-crafted one can illuminate previously unseen paths to knowledge. Bacon's insight here also reflects his role in the transition from medieval to modern thinking. Rather than accepting received wisdom, he advocated for active questioning and investigation, but not reckless or random questioning. The emphasis on prudence reflects his belief in methodical, careful inquiry. Team quote 19.5. Imagination is the eye of the soul. Joseph Joubert 1754–1824. This is a beautifully poetic metaphor from Joubert, who was known for his thoughtful aphorisms and philosophical insights. Just as the physical eye allows us to see the material world, he suggests that imagination lets us see with our inner, spiritual selves. Joubert, a French moralist and essayist, wrote extensively about the nature of thought and creativity. This particular quote captures how imagination serves as more than just fancy or make-believe. It's a genuine way of perceiving and understanding reality, albeit through a different lens than physical sight. What makes the metaphor particularly apt is how it captures multiple aspects of imagination. Like the eye, imagination lets us see things at different distances: past, present, future. It can focus on details or take in the broader view. It helps us navigate through possibilities just as vision helps us navigate physical space. It can be trained and developed, just as visual acuity can be enhanced. Coming from the late 18th/early 19th century, this quote bridges the rational Enlightenment with a more emotion-centered Romantic period, suggesting that true understanding requires both logical thought and creative vision. Team quote 19.6. An overflow of good converts to bad. William Shakespeare 1564–1616. This quote appears to be attributed to Shakespeare and touches on an intriguing philosophical concept, that even something positive, when taken to excess, can become harmful. It's similar to the ancient Greek notion of nothing in excess, and relates to many practical examples we see in life. Too much of a good food can make us sick. Excessive exercise can lead to injury. Even positive traits like conscientiousness, when taken to extremes, can become counterproductive perfectionism. This idea of moderation and balance appears throughout Shakespeare's works, though he explores it in different contexts. It's a theme that remains relevant today, as we often struggle with questions of how much is too much in various aspects of our lives. Team quote 19.7. Action speaks louder than words, but not nearly as often. Mark Twain 1835–1910. This is a clever twist on the common proverb, actions speak louder than words. Twain adds his characteristic wit and satirical observation of human nature by pointing out that while actions may be more meaningful than words, people tend to talk far more than they act. The quote reflects Twain's keen understanding of human behavior, how we often make grand statements or promises but fail to follow through with concrete actions. It's a gentle mockery of human tendency to substitute talk for meaningful action. This observation remains remarkably relevant today, perhaps even more so in our age of social media, where it's easier than ever to make proclamations and statements without necessarily backing them up with real-world action. It's particularly interesting how Twain takes a well-known saying and subverts it with humor to make a deeper point about human nature. This was characteristic of his style, using wit to deliver social commentary. Team quote 19.8. A man is what he thinks about all day long. Ralph Waldo Emerson 1803–1882. This quote from Emerson reflects his transcendentalist philosophy and his emphasis on the power of thought to shape character and destiny. It suggests that our predominant thoughts ultimately define who we are, not just our conscious choices, but what occupies our mind throughout the day. The idea has several interesting implications. Our habitual thoughts shape our personality and behavior. We have some control over who we become by directing our thoughts. What we focus on mentally becomes our reality in a practical sense. This concept has found support in modern psychology through concepts like cognitive behavioral therapy, which recognizes how thought patterns influence behavior and emotional states. It also aligns with contemporary ideas about neuroplasticity, how our brain physically changes based on what we regularly think about. Interestingly, while Emerson wrote this in the 19th century, it foreshadowed many principles that would later be emphasized in fields ranging from psychology to personal development. The quote suggests both responsibility, we are shaped by our thoughts, and opportunity, we can shape ourselves by changing our thoughts. What do you think about this relationship between thought patterns and personal identity? Give your kids free easy extra advantage math, spelling and reading workbooks you can download for free at stop2think.com or buy at educationstopshate.com. Free easy math wisdom workbooks with Octo-Repetition to grow math self-confidence. You'll get plenty of repetitive practice of age ranges and averages of our 52 teams of 8 quote authors. Free easy alpha Cypher coded puzzles teach letters, numbers and phrases using antique wisdoms that encourage and educate. Can you decode this Cypher quote of encouragement using either our learning to spell or just for fun instructions? And since time is money, practice reading faster with 52 teams of antique rival wisdoms that have passed the test of time to encourage, educate and entertain generations for centuries. We offer printed versions and timed videos with background music. Sign up for free weekly emails of 52 teams of antique rival wisdom workbooks with easy math, spelling and reading practice. And, if you'd like to get paid for sharing our wearable wisdoms, keep this in mind. Everyone I know wears a shirt, and most of us change them daily, so change your shirt and change the world. Social equalities are blatantly subliminal antique positive wisdoms repetitively shared without saying a word. This applies to all our wearable shareable wisdoms. Like pretty witty baby onesies and baby tees that you and others will see and read multiple times a day. The same is true with pretty witty kids, but they'll also share these wisdoms with anyone that can read at daycare or school. Youthful truths let your kids gain confidence sharing antique wisdoms with their friends. Imagine them sharing words of wisdom with classmates and teachers. I think, therefore I think tees I wear is a super easy way to share words of wisdom that have passed the test of time. Our social equalities help make us all wiser and kinder with blatantly subliminal messages promoting a more fair and equal opportunity society for all. And don't forget our giftwisdoms.com for birthdays and holidays that makes it easy to share the wisdom with clothing, coffee mugs, and magnets. So do the future a favor by encouraging, educating and entertaining with words of wisdom that have passed the test of time to make us all wiser and kinder. With wearable wisdoms to fit babies, kids and adults, you can clothe a whole family, city or state. Join the 52 of 8 today at 52of8.com.